Hey guys, welcome back to Anime Sekai Podcast. I am your host, Ichigo.
And I'm your other host, Mikan.
Join us this week as we discuss Kansai Ben. Hey guys, welcome back.
Welcome back, guys.
Thanks for stopping by and thanks for hanging out with us. This week we are going to be discussing Kansai Ben. And for those of you that do speak Japanese or have been studying Japanese, Kansai Ben or Kansai Dialect is one of the various dialects that Japan has. And we decided to bring back our best friend from Osaka, Yuzu.
Yuzu!
Welcome back.
Welcome back,
Thank you for
Yuzu.
having me again. I'm excited to be here again and talk about Kansai Ben.
Yes, the trio is back, guys. We brought the trio back.
trio is back.
So we obviously had to bring Yuzu back for this particular episode because
She is a
she is
professional.
a professional Kansai dialect speaker, aka she's been doing this her whole life.
Yes. Born, bred, and raised.
Yes. And for those that do not know, Yuzu, can you just kind of explain like which prefectures are considered part of the Kansai area?
Sure, so Osaka is definitely the most famous one. Kyoto, which is right next to Osaka, is also famous. Nara is part of Kansai. Shiga, there is Shiga, which is a prefecture that has the biggest lake in Japan. It's beautiful, you should go there. But anyways, Wakayama, Mie, those are the main ones that speak Kansai Ben. There are prefectures around the Kansai area that also kind of speak Kansai Ben-ish Japanese, but yeah, we're the native speakers of Kansai Ben.
Thank you so much. So, for those that do watch anime in dub, what are you waiting for? Head on over to the sub side, because
Yes.
you're missing out.
You are.
Just kidding. But, for those that do watch the anime in the original language, Kansai Ben is used among a lot of popular characters. So, for example, the number one character that comes to my mind that speaks Kansai Ben is Cardcaptor Sakura's Kero, Kero-chan or Kero-verse.
Kiro-chan.
He's the number one character that I guess you can say, for me personally, I feel like he not represents Osaka, but his dialect, I automatically think of Osaka.
Yeah. And it's heavy, too. I would say he's one of the more heavy characters. Like, the accent is heavy. You can hear it clearly.
Yes. I'm trying to think of some others.
Well, there are actually quite a few. If anyone has seen Bleach, there's actually quite a few that speaks in the same way. I mean, they have slightly different dialects, but like Ichimaru Ging, if anyone of you guys know him, and there are a few others as well. And I know Ichigo has seen this as well. Lovely Complex.
Yes, that whole anime is set in Osaka.
Yes.
So all of the characters, I think with the exception of one or two
Mm-hmm.
characters,
They all
speak Kansai Ben
speak
because
it.
they're all born and raised in Osaka.
Yeah. And if you guys are interested in like learning it, I would say that's a pretty good anime to watch because everyone is sort of partaking in speaking it. And there's a lot of like natural sort of conversations that they have because it's like are they high schoolers or middle schoolers?
I think they're
But yeah,
high
they have regular conversations so you can really hear the natural form. But actually, there is one really sad one.
Uh-oh.
Grave of the Fireflies.
They spoke Kansai Ben?
It's Hotaru no Haka for those of you guys don't know because it's Kobe. It's takes place in Kobe and the bombings in Kobe.
Oh.
And so yeah, they have Kansai Ben accent.
Wait, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I never picked that up. Wait, Yuzu, did you
Yeah.
know this?
I watched it when I was small, so I can't remember. But I think, yeah, probably it was about Kobe, right? The bombing in
Yeah.
Kobe. So,
The bombings in
yeah, I
Kobe.
can
Yeah.
remember the characters speaking Kansai Ben, but it makes sense, right? Like, they should speak Kansai Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Or
we
if I
should go
did,
back and watch.
I never actually like caught it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like there are several characters that when I first started studying Japanese, I was wondering why their voices were a little different
Yeah.
or like the way that they spoke and their speech patterns were different, but it didn't resonate with me right off the bat until like probably until the anime Azumanga Daioh, I think is the name.
Ah, yeah.
Kasuga Ayumu is her name. When I heard her character speaking in Kansai dialect, and the other characters kind of like looking at her like, why are you talking like that? That's when it first clicked for me. I was like, oh, there's
So
a
sad.
difference.
Mm-hmm.
How does Kansai Ben sound to you guys? Because to me, like, I always speak it, right? I grew up in Kansai. Everyone around me normally speak Kansai Ben. So I don't, I feel like I'm too desensitized to tell the
Yeah.
characteristics in a way. So I'm very curious, like, how it sounds to other people.
I'm not gonna lie, it does sound like a southern accent. It's got that like twang, you know?
That's true.
Yeah. I'm from the South, so I actually don't think my Southern accent is that strong, to be perfectly honest. People
Mm-hmm.
listening to me might disagree, but um
No,
I
I would
feel
say
like
yours is not that strong.
yeah, well, Kansai Ben to me, up until I moved to Kyoto, I did not think it resonated with me as like a Southern accent, if that makes sense. I don't know what accent I thought it was, but it wasn't until I moved to Kyoto that I was like, I guess I had to put the mannerisms of the people living there and the way that everybody interacted with each other that I was like, oh, well, this feels like home. Kind of.
Yeah, I
I
guess
mean, it
it's not
did,
only
but
about the language, but it's also about the personality of people in Kansai too, right? Like, we're more open, chatty. We like to have fun. We're not that shy compared to people from Tokyo.
Yes. It's that a whole vibe is similar to like the North and South, like in America, I would say.
mhm. I think
They're
that's
more
why I love Kyoto
expressive.
so much.
You connect with your southern roots.
I did. I really did. That's why I want to go back to Kyoto. I do. I miss it. That's my other home. I'm so comfortable there. Ooh, there is one character that speaks Kansai dialect, but he is a former Yakuza.
Oh.
It's called The Way of the House Husband.
Oh, yes.
So
I've
it
seen.
the story is about a former gangster or a former Yakuza who like leaves the Yakuza life. He gets married and now he's a house husband. And funny, his voice actor is Kenjiro Tsuda, the guy who also plays Nanami.
Yeah, he has that beautiful classic voice. Oh, so
Girl,
nice.
I can listen to him all day. Ooh. Yuzu, what are some of your favorite Kansai words and or phrases?
I guess I said it before in the other episode when I came here as a guest.
Mhm.
Meccha Sukiyanen is, yeah, I like that phrase because it's really, I don't know, to me it's neutral, but it sounds very passionate to other people. So I feel like I can communicate my feelings a little bit more with that phrase, Meccha Sukiyanen. And it's cute. I feel like Meccha is cuter than totemo, which is the standard Japanese way of saying very, right? And yanen, I don't know, the sounds cute. I hope I'm making sense, but I feel like it's different than just saying totemo suki desu or totemo suki da yo. Meccha suki ya ne.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cute.
I think that's why I like Kansai Ben so much. I feel like you can get your emotions across a little bit more.
Honestly, I feel like It almost sounds a little meaner, but in a cute way. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I feel like with I'm thinking of the way of the house husband
Mhm.
because a lot of times the words and phrases that he uses are very much kind of harsh, but
Yeah.
like you can tell he doesn't mean it that way.
It's, like, cute. It almost just comes out cute where it's like, "Aw, you're being yelled at, but you're just like, oh, that's so cute."
It's like, "Oh, he's threatening me.
Yeah.
He sounds so sweet." I'm being
It
There's
literally
threatened.
does
love,
come off that.
right? In our language. I feel like, or in our dialect,
Mhm.
there's more love, compassion, passion in general.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm.
we might say stuff that's a little bit harsh, but from the tone of voice and intonation and everything, you can feel that there's love behind it. And it's not
Mhm.
abusive either. It's not that, we're saying something really abusive to somebody with cute voice. But it's actually like really loving way of saying something.
Mhm. It just makes you feel closer, because of the way they say things.
Yeah. Now, there is a distinct difference in although it is a Kansai dialect, there is a distinct difference in the words and the phrases depending on where you're from. So, Yuzu is from Osaka, but we actually met her in Kyoto. Correct me if I'm wrong, Yuzu, but I have been told a lot of times certain people who are born and raised in Kyoto, when they speak with their Kansai dialect and someone's like, "Oh, you must be from Osaka," they get a little upset and vice versa.
That is true, because to be honest, I'm actually from Kyoto too. I was born in Kyoto. I was also raised in Kyoto for a good amount of my childhood. I did move to Osaka later on, so I speak both dialects. But yeah, I do notice myself saying that I'm from Kyoto, to express my identity. Yeah, and I also remember when I moved to Osaka, I started to pick up the dialect over there, right? And I went back to my grandma's place, which was in Kyoto. She was quite upset that I wasn't speaking Kyoto dialect anymore.
Mm.
So yeah, there's pride in being
Uh,
Kyotojin.
Now, is
Oh,
there a distinct difference? Because when we first met you, you were living in Osaka at the time. So in my head, I didn't even know that you were born and raised in Kyoto until you just said so.
wait.
Yeah, I feel like for people from Kyoto and Osaka, the personalities are also really different too. People from Kyoto,
Mhm.
they tend to be slower than people in Osaka. I feel like people in Osaka are more like rushed, even in not in the sense of like I have so many things to do, but they love to chat, right? And they love comedy. Osaka is famous for comedy too, so they love to talk quickly and have like a comedy type of conversation. So they like to have a quick, or I feel like I'm repeating myself, but kind of a quick conversation together and just have fun. But Kyoto people are more slow. They don't focus completely on making comedy together.
Mhm.
And we
Mm,
focus on more on like being polite.
Yeah.
Osaka people are more
mm.
blunt.
Yeah. I feel like
Yeah,
Osaka gets, like, that rap of, oh, they're kind of like the rude people of Japan in a
yeah,
sense.
yeah. Very
Mm.
blunt, straightforward, and
Yeah.
trying to be funny all the time. Kyoto people, they don't want to be like Osaka people. They want
Mhm.
to be slower. They want to look like more, quote unquote, sophisticated, more
Yeah.
educated.
They're like the proper version. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
don't compare us to them."
yeah.
Right, right.
And historically too, I feel like there's influence of history because Kyoto used to be the capital city of Japan. I guess people over there focus more on like being educated, being proper, put together. But Osaka was always known as more like a commercial city, even when Kyoto was the capital city of Japan. So I feel like they have more like market people vibe
Mhm.
there.
Like food and yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
I mean, Osaka's food is, like, top tier. So
Oh my
good.
god. Yes.
I'm sorry, I love Kyoto, but Kyoto is just not, for me, in my personal opinion, they just don't have the food. But Osaka, ooh,
I feel
Yeah,
like
I feel
Kyoto has the food for me, but it's more of like the traditional
yeah.
type food, which
yeah,
I'm a huge fan of. I love traditional style Japanese food. And I feel like Osaka, I don't know, every time I went to Osaka, I was very much like, okay, I've had my takoyaki, I've had my okonomiyaki, and I've had this, I can't remember the other thing that's like traditional to Osaka, but once I had those three things, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to go back to Kyoto.
Yeah, Kyoto has a kaiseki food, the traditional, more high-end kind of food, because of
yeah.
the history of being the capital city, having the emperor, you know. But Osaka's cuisine is actually known as something called BQ gourmet, or in English, I guess it's B class B gourmet or something like that.
Mhm.
So it's known
Mhm.
as something more affordable, cheap. They use a lot of flour. For example, when you look at takoyaki, okonomiyaki, or even kushikatsu,
Yeah.
they're all famous in Osaka. They all use lots of flour. So more accessible food, right? So it's called BQ gourmet in Japan. And it's more like
Yeah.
a street food vibe too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kyoto is also historically known as the largest city for their geisha district, geisha and Maiko district. And I didn't know that there was a difference in Kansai dialect between people who live in Kyoto and the Maiko and geisha that reside in Kyoto as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like we used to maybe speak the same dialect in Kyoto, but Maiko, Geisha, they decided to stick with very traditional, old classical Kyoto dialect. And Kyoto dialect itself evolved as Japan became more unified, because Japan used to be more divided, right?
Mhm.
Interaction between each prefecture was quite limited. But as we kind of in Japan globalize things, Kyoto dialect got influenced by other dialects. Um, we have more people from different places, or people from Kyoto also moved out of Kyoto. So yeah, I feel like we speak more modernized Kyoto dialect. When I speak with my grandma, she speaks very traditional Kyoto dialect. I understand the traditional one, but it sounds more like Geisha and Michael's dialect.
That's really interesting, actually.
There's
Yeah.
a anime that came out a couple years back, and then Netflix actually picked up a live action version of this anime. And I know that there is a manga, and I believe it's called The Maiko House or Makanai. And it
Mhm.
is about a story about two girls who moved to Kyoto to become Maiko and geisha. Like that is their dream. They're young high school students, just graduated middle school, and they are from, I believe, Aomori, and they move to Kyoto and join a geisha house, or not a geisha, I'll say Maiko house. And one girl ends up becoming the Makanai, which is the um I guess the best way to explain it is she is the one who basically takes care of all of the food for the geisha and Maiko in that house. So one girl becomes the Makanai, and then her friend becomes a Maiko. And it's interesting because both of these girls speak with Aomori dialect, but because they've moved to Kyoto, they've moved into this Maiko house, they are now having to use Kansai slash Maiko dialect. It's actually really interesting. I think both of you would like it. It will make you hungry because she's making food for everybody, and so she gives you the recipes.
I'm
But
very
it's
curious
also
about the show because the girls are from Aomori, right? Aomori has
mhm,
very strong accent. They have whole
yes,
different dialect that
Mhm.
actually most of the people from the rest of the pretty much Japan don't really understand. The dialect is really really different. I can't really understand what they're talking about. So I'm very curious how they changed their dialect from that heavy accent dialect to Kyoto's dialect. That sounds really interesting.
I know in the anime it didn't I think they're from Aomori, I could be wrong, but I know in the anime it seemed like one girl's accent was a lot stronger than the other girl, and the other girl whose accent was not as strong, she was able to pick up Michael Kansai dialect a lot faster than the other girl. I personally like it because it kind of gives you a not a first-hand look, but just a simple glance into how I'll say
Like
Japanese
the
girls,
workings of yeah.
yeah, like the inner workings of becoming a Michael
Mhm.
to then becoming a geisha and things like that. The anime didn't go as far as in depth into that aspect, but the live action did. And
Mm.
for those that are interested, it is on Netflix and it's called The Makanai.
Also, for those of you who are interested in going to Japan and seeing these geishas, unfortunately, apparently a lot of the places are banning foreigners now.
Mhm. Starting April.
So, yeah, you might not have that opportunity unless you're leaving this month.
Yeah, if you're going to Japan this month and you do get a chance to go to Kyoto, um, if you do see a geisha or a Michael, mostly Michael, I'm assuming that you will see. Just be respectful
Yes.
and
Don't touch
you
them,
know,
don't harass them. Yeah.
The number is decreasing, but I think it's also not only because not a lot of people are trying to be Michael and Geisha anymore, but I think they're also trying to hide from the public because there are too many tourists who would harass them.
Mhm.
So I don't
Mhm.
see them that often anymore
It's so
in
sad.
Gion. Yeah.
yeah. Well, this time around, I did also notice when we were walking through Gion and that Maiko district, they actually had a lot more signs up
Mhm.
for foreigners saying, please do not come into this Michael house or no photography down this particular street. Please be respectful. If you do see a Michael, please, keep your distance, things like that.
Yeah, and those signs are also new too.
Yeah,
They
that's
didn't they were not there when I was small. Or when I was a teenager,
mhm.
they were not there.
They
It's
weren't there
pretty
when we were there.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like a recent development, I think,
Mhm.
which is sad, but, they gotta
It
do what
is
they gotta
sad.
do.
Yeah.
But a good thing is that there are places where you can actually see them, right? They also have some shows and businesses, places where you can actually meet Michael and Geisha and do the traditional
Mhm.
games that they play, or you get to see them dancing. So you can go to those designated places, more
Mhm.
specialized places.
Yeah.
There's also a Japanese, I think it's a movie, not from manga, or maybe it's actually it could be from manga. But there is a show about another girl trying to be Maiko, and a guy who came to Kyoto on a school trip, and he saw Maiko san for the first time, and he fell in love with the culture. So he became like a nerd who would try to follow the trend of Maiko san. So he went to Kyoto to take photos of them, and then this girl also went to Kyoto to be Maiko too, and like there were some stories between them, but that movie also shows how to become Maiko and the culture there, the hierarchy and practices that they have to do. So I highly recommend watching that one. It's called Maiko Han.
Michael
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
it's very
god,
much comedy. It's
so
really
cute.
funny. I like that movie. Yeah.
We'll put that information in the drop up in the description below if anybody's interested.
And the reason why it's Maiko-han, not Maiko-san, is in Kyoto, in traditional Kyoto dialect, we don't use san. We say han instead when we call somebody. So, for example, instead of saying Ichigo-san, I would call her Ichigo-han. Or instead of Mikan-san, I would say Mikan-han. And my
Which also sounds
generation,
so cute.
yeah,
It does sound
my
super cute.
generation don't use that anymore, but my grandma's generation, they still call each other with han. So yeah, that
Ah,
movie's title, Maiko-han, is from that traditional Kyoto dialect. Maiko-san and Geisha, they also call each other with han too because they want to use the traditional dialect.
Mm.
they do that in the Makanai. They do actually
Mm.
call each other that way in the Makanai. Once they become a Maiko Minarai, they start calling each other that, which I thought was interesting because I didn't know that. I was like, oh. Okay, that's different.
Yeah,
So,
little
oh,
difference, right? It's really interesting
yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
Kyoto dialect and dialects of just general Kansai Ben or even standard
Yeah.
Japanese.
Mhm.
But I feel like a lot of the obachans there, like especially in Kyoto, I noticed they would say that, which is it just sounds so endearing.
I
Yeah.
think it's cute. It does sound very endearing, but I'm also like in my head I feel like it's very much like an old southern, not southern, but just like dear or
Yeah,
dearie.
like sweetheart, honey, like
Mhm.
it's so cute.
Yeah. It's a shame that we don't use that anymore. I could still use it, but nobody around me uses it, right? So it would be just so weird if I call everyone with Han.
Yeah, I also feel
You
like
should
if you
start a
start
trend.
changing it up, yeah.
Bring it back again.
Yeah.
Another famous Kyoto dialect is instead of using this, like 私は use this, we use dos instead. In the traditional dialect, not anymore. But I might say 私は use dos, dos, instead of 私は use this.
Oh,
That's
wow. I've
also a
never
dialect
heard
my
anyone say that.
grandma uses.
Really? I've
Yeah,
actually
I
never
thought
heard that in
dosu is
person.
quite cute, but when
That
I
is.
told that to my friend who is studying Japanese, he was like, "Huh? Dosu? That sounds so strong, and it sounds like a sumo wrestler or something."
It does. It does. That's what I imagined at first, actually.
Yeah, I did too. um, so Yuzu, I know we actually discussed this very briefly outside of the recording, but we were talking about how there are certain American movies that are dubbed and distributed to Japan. So movies like Minions or Despicable Me or Shrek. And I know you're telling us that some characters, the dubs are actually Kansai Ben. They're using
Yeah,
Kansai Ben.
yeah. The the guy, I can't remember his name. The guy from Minions, the leader or controller or manager of the.
Gru.
Oh yeah,
Gru.
yeah. He speaks Kansai Ben. Shrek also speaks Kansai Ben too.
So anyone who has like a heavy when they speak in English, I guess anyone who has a heavy accent, Japanese people just attach Kansai Ben
Yeah,
to that, I guess. That's
yeah,
really
it's
Which is
cute
okay.
though.
interesting because Shrek's English is an Irish English, you know?
Yeah, but I'm assuming it's just because he has an accent that they're like, "Oh, yeah, let's just make that voice actor
A
speak
Kansai Ben.
in yeah."
I'm not sure if this is true, but I also heard that when they were trying to find which dialect should be the dialect that will be used for Shrek, the people, the creators or producers are actually thinking about the culture in England and the UK overall,
Mhm.
and they thought that it's Scotland, right? He speaks Scottish or something like right, Shrek. Um,
I think so. He's
okay,
Scottish or
or at
Irish.
least
Not
like
Irish,
accent from
yeah.
that region, right? So I think what I heard that they kind of thought the Scottish culture might be a little bit closer to Kansai culture.
That actually makes sense, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's another reason why they chose Kansai Ben for sure.
That's actually true. I would say, yeah, that because they have that yeah, Scottish people also have sort of that that they're very how do you say? They're very funny, chill, blunt. Yeah, I could see that. That was a probably good connection there.
Yeah.
In which
Even like
case,
when I watched Shrek, I felt like it was so weird that he was speaking Kansai Ben.
I can't imagine Shrek or Gru speaking Kansai Ben. I'm sorry, I just can't. Like my brain, I can't wrap my brain around it.
I don't know, I'm just trying to imagine Shrek speaking Japanese in general, but if anything, I feel like Kansai Ben would be the most like, in my head, like, it would be the closest that I can imagine to it. So it kinda makes sense to me.
I feel like Shrek yelling out "Nandianen" just feels wrong.
That's true. Yeah, and both of them were dubbed by very famous Japanese comedians too. So you can maybe look into, Japanese comedy more, learn about the Kansai culture more.
That
I
sounds
think
good.
Shrek was dubbed by a comedian called Hamada from a comedy duo called Downtown. So you can look into his comedy. Um, the other guy from Minion, I think he was dubbed by a comedian called Tsurube. And he is also very famous too. And actually, both of them do different types of comedy. In Japan, there are lots different types of comedy that people do. So Hamada, the Shrek one, does stand-up comedy. Tsurube actually forgot. Um, I think he does either manzai or rakugo. I have to actually check though. But yeah, you get to actually learn all the deep stuff of Kansai Ben culture.
I
And you
feel
might
like,
actually see like how these two characters might speak differently too, because the comedians are different.
well, not only that, I feel like even with the anime characters that speak Kansai Ben, all of them, and I don't typically know who does a lot of their voice acting for each character, obviously, but I feel like with each of those characters, I don't know, a lot of them I feel I automatically put them in Osaka.
Mm,
Like if the character was a real live person, that character would have been born and raised in Osaka, which I
I
feel like
see.
is more common. Now there are a few where they do use a Kyoto dialect. For example, Fushimi Inari anime, there's an anime surrounding Fushimi Inari called Inari Konkon.
Hmm.
I realized the accent was not like Osaka dialect, it was more Kyoto dialect, which was made sense because Fushimi Inari is in Kyoto.
Hmm. But I feel like the younger generations, they just talk more similar now. You know what I mean? I feel like if
Yeah.
you compare like two grandmothers from Kyoto and Osaka, it'd sound very different. But I feel like nowadays, even like a lot of the college kids we were talking to, a lot of them they seem to speak pretty similarly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are differences, so we can
Hmm.
sometimes notice, where people are coming from,
Yeah.
even inside of Kansai. But yeah, I feel like our dialects are getting similar, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
and what's
all
also
blending.
interesting is that even like in one prefecture, for example, let's take Kyoto. So Kyoto is a prefecture that has a bunch of cities inside, right? And Kyoto is kind of long. So there's like the north part and the south part. Kyoto City, which was the capital city of Japan before, what is it more in the south of the whole prefecture? So that area has a little bit more distinct uh, dialect or way of speaking compared to other parts of Kyoto.
Mm.
Yeah, and Osaka too. Even like personality difference. Osaka, when you look at it, there's also north part and the south part. People
Hmm.
from the north tend to have similar personality to people from Kyoto because it's closer to each other. So they're a little bit more polite, less blunt. But people from the south, they're very blunt, very chatty, very
Hmm.
friendly. So you super super extrovert. So you can see all these different differences. Even when you look at Kobe, which is a city in a prefecture called Hyogo, and I actually forgot to mention Hyogo in the introduction earlier, but Hyogo is also a gigantic, huge prefecture, and Kobe is the capital city of the prefecture. People over there tend to, try to look like they're rich. They're educated. They're more international. They have like emphasis on being international. So
Mm.
their Kansai pen is not as strong. But when you look at another city in the same prefecture called Amagasaki, which is the city where the voice actor or the comedian who did the voice of Shrek came from, they tend to be again very blunt. Their
Hmm.
Kansai pen is very strong
Mm.
too. So you can see all the small differences in each city of Kansai, not only like
Mm.
between prefectures.
Wow,
So
that's interesting.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's interesting because there's just like within the United States or wherever country where there's so many different dialects, within those dialects you have differences. It's interesting just to kind of get a generalized idea of where somebody is from just based on their accent is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I also feel like if you speak, like, for instance, you're as a Southerner, like, I feel like you can pinpoint probably Southern accents much better than I can. But listen, if you ask me, like, is that person from New York or New Jersey? I will probably be able to tell you better than most people. That person is not a New Jersey person. That is a New Yorker, and vice versa.
Yeah, for me, so after I moved out of Kyoto, what I didn't realize is I had picked up Kansai Ben because I had been using it every day for so long that I had picked it up and that was part of my normal speech. So when I went back to Japan and moved to Tokyo, there was a lot of people who kind of either gave me the side eye or was just overall confused
Mhm.
because here you have an American who can speak Japanese, but she's speaking with a Kansai dialect. Like, what is going
Yeah.
on? And I had a boss at the time who was from Wakayama. And at one point in time, she was like, can you stop using Kansai dialect, please?
Mhm.
Because you're in Tokyo. And I'm like, I guess it didn't register that I was using it.
Yeah. I also feel almost like, especially if you're in Tokyo or, like, in a very professional setting, you have to use, hyogen, like, you just have to speak, I guess, what you would say, not normal Japanese, but
Very standardized is what I'll
yeah,
call it.
very basically, like, modern Japanese, or else it's considered almost, like, disrespectful or rude in a sense.
Ooh, that actually begs the question. Yuzu, is there a difference in like professional Japanese in the Kansai area compared to just like everyday?
Mostly Kansai dialect, unless yeah, you go to a very high end place. I think most places would speak Kansai Ben to you, like Kansai Ben polite Japanese. And yeah, again, like when you go to Kyoto, you will hear a different type of polite Kansai Ben there compared to polite Kansai Ben in Osaka. Especially
Mhm.
Kyoto is known for this polite phrase that we use. We use haru quite a bit, and how we use it, it's kind of difficult to explain. But for example, you might ask a customer, like let's say, like, would you like a tea, a cup of tea or something? In standard Japanese, you would say, "お茶は入りますか?" But in Kansai Ben, not Kyoto dialect, Kansai Ben, you might say, "お茶入りますか?" You might notice that difference in accent, but
Mhm.
it's kind of still standard, right? It's just the difference in the accent. But in Kyoto dialect, we say, "お茶飲まはりますか?" So we use a lot of like haru, harimasu
Mhm.
a lot. So when you go to Kyoto, you might hear those phrases more in business settings.
Mm. So
Yeah,
there is
which
like
might
a
make all the conversations complicated for Japanese learners. Go
Yeah.
to Kyoto and be like, what are you saying? I don't understand what the phrases you're using.
If you leave the Kansai area, or particularly if you go to Tokyo, I feel like you are expected to completely change how you speak.
Yeah.
Mhm. I feel like it's very, at least in my experience, it was almost like it seems like everyone can speak, like, the Tokyo dialect or expected to, and if you live there, you work in a business setting, you have to speak in that way.
yeah,
It is expected of you, basically.
which at the time I didn't know. So I did have a lot of customers and I was being polite. So I was using polite speech, but I had a lot of Kansai intonation. And I did have several customers say, "Oh, your Japanese is so good. Where did you study?" And then I would tell them the school, and they were like, "Okay, now it makes more sense."
Yeah. It's being put together now, I get it.
Yeah, we're putting the pieces together. And okay, got it. Okay, great. And I did have one customer who just flat out asked me like, "Why are you using Kansai dialect?" At the time I did but didn't recognize it. I didn't know how to stop. So I was like, "Oh, I studied at this school." And they were like, "Oh. Yeah, you're gonna have to learn how to use a Tokyo dialect." And I was like,
Yeah. But for
"Okay."
instance, even when we were studying, like, for instance, a lot of the books, they don't, everything is, at least what we were learning, like, everything is taught in the Tokyo dialect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All of my teachers were either from Kyoto or Osaka. So in my lessons, they would teach us the standard Japanese, like by the book. And then the teacher would turn around and tell us how they would say it if, like, in the Kansai area. So I think that also added
Yeah.
to me speaking in Kansai Ben. Because I know when we went back for Yuzu's wedding and we met up with some of our friends from that school, my Kansai Ben was coming back. And I didn't hate it. I actually loved it because I feel like I've lost a lot because I don't use it.
Yeah.
That's the
Uh,
best. Being able to speak different dialects in Japanese. I think it's a good quality to have. It's fun, right? You can connect with people in so many different
Yeah.
ways.
mm-hmm.
And it's fun, and you can express yourself in different ways, which is really exciting.
I love it. Okay, so before we go, guys, Yuzu, Mikan, can you guys tell me what your favorite Kansai word or phrase is? I know, Yuzu, you've given us Meccha Sukiyanen, but I know you gotta have more.
I have to think about it.
Or Mikan, if you have one.
Ooh, I don't know. I really like "honmaya de" or "akang."
Akang.
Yeah. I
uh,
think those are probably my favorite.
I feel like when you said those, Kero-chan really popped in my head, like from Card Captain Sakura. I'd say mine are Seyana. Just like, I see, Seyana. I say that still, even to this day. Seyana. Or Nandeya. Which is like a short form of Nandeyanen, but I feel like it's
Mhm.
Nandeya. There is one in Kyoto that I guess maybe Michael used. I don't know. Okureyasu. Was that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okureyasu. Yeah, I can't remember what it means, but I remember learning it, and I sounded pretty, so I kept it in my memory bank, but I've never used it myself.
Yeah, I can't remember the meaning of it strangely. But Korea's, it's a very common Kyoto dialect, but I can't remember.
Uh-huh.
I should know. My grandma uses it. I should know. Suddenly it disappeared.
Or okini.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Okureyas.
one.
Okureyas is してください. Please do blah blah
Oh.
blah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, my grandma uses it. Yeah, in that context, yeah. For
I
me,
love
I
how
was
there's
gonna say honma, but Mikan said
Honma.
it already.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel
Honma.
like honma is again like it's a very expressive way of saying really, right? Instead of saying
Really? Yeah.
honto, honma sounds stronger. So I like it. I also like chow chow, like 違う違う. Like, no, no,
違う。
no, that's not
Ciao,
it.
ciao.
Yeah,
Chow
that's not
chow.
it. Oh, that's actually a really cute one. Chow, 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 chow.
Chow chow.
Sounds like a chow chow dog or something.
True. I feel like Kansai Ben sounds so cute. There was one international student who told me Kansai Ben sounds like a cat. Like it sounds like meow 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 or nyan nyan
Oh,
nyan.
yeah.
There are
It
lots of
actually
like
does.
sound. Yeah, ciao.
There actually are,
Meccha.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's so
Nandeyanen.
cute. I promise you,
Kansai Ben. Ciao,
after this episode, my Japanese is gonna slip to Kansai Ben for a little while. Which I'm okay with. I'm really trying not to forget it. I love it so much. So you guys let us know, who are some of your favorite characters that use Kansai Ben, if there are some, and if you have learned any Kansai Ben just from either your characters or even this episode, let us know what some of your favorite words and phrases are. Thanks again, Yuzu, for joining us on this week's episode of Kansai Ben. So happy to have you back.
Absolutely. Yay. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you
again,
so
Yuzu.
much. It was fun. Thank you.
We'll have to have you back again.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, she will be back. We just don't know when or what we're gonna do, but she'll be back. She'll be back, guys. Don't worry.
Eventually. Yes.
Thanks again, and make sure you guys join us next week for another brand new episode. And please be sure to follow us on our socials, Instagram and TikTok at Anime Sekai Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks again, Yuzu.
Thanks again, Yuzu. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.